Can you hear me now?
I'm John Peachey, Chief People Mechanic at the Think Farm. Welcome along to the People Mechanics podcast. I've always believed in the maxim that we will always be smarter than me. We will always be smarter than me. Lots of people in the conversation, I think, gives us wisdom, gives us a sense of grounding. Vaughan Couillault is the principal senior leader at Papatoetoe High School, a school of some 1,700 students in South Auckland. He's also the president of SPANZ, the Secondary Principals Association of New Zealand. Big shoes to fill. Vaughan, welcome.
Kia ora, good morning. I hope you're well, John. Good to see you again. Sitting in with me on this podcast is Renisi, who is shadowing me from a Master of Secondary School Leadership perspective and is in the senior leadership team at a school up the road from me. So, yeah. There we go.
Fantastic. Always learning, and welcome. Kia ora to you, and welcome to the podcast. Yeah, I love the fact that senior leaders are lifetime learners, right? Nothing stops. We might not be behind a desk anymore in the classroom, but we've got to keep learning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this week has presented me with situations that I had never experienced before. And so, just stuff that you haven't come across. So there you go. It's all good.
I think we've had that conversation before. I mean, the role of a secondary principal these days is a pretty, I'll say, dynamic role, ever changing and ever expanding. I said that you're a principal of 1,700 students, give or take. But if you add family to that and staff and hangers-on, you're talking about a community of 15 or 20,000 people, aren't you? It's a very, very big community.
Yeah, it's as my sister-in-law once said, it's similar to being the mayor of a small town. And so you're ultimately responsible for the information that people get, the daily lives of, and I suppose the education side of it is a pretty big deal because it's all about future prospects, right?
Yeah, no, it is about the future prospects, and I've often said to people at conferences, sitting in the classroom somewhere today, and I can absolutely say this, sort of peering into the future, sitting somewhere within the hallowed halls of Papatoetoe High School, it's the next Sir Peter Beck, the next Alison Rowe, the next, Jacinda Ardern. I mean, that's the reality, right? Is that we've got care of some of the smartest people that'll be in our future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was fortunate enough yesterday to be at an awards ceremony for NZQA giving out their Top Scholar Awards. And it's just full of cool people, whether you're the top scholar or not, but actually running a high school and working in a high school, whilst you might hear in the media that it's relatively challenging, it's also relatively rewarding too. It's one of those things that is complicated yet rewarding. And you're absolutely right. One of those people in that room that I was in yesterday, and indeed in an assembly hall around my campus, is someone who is probably going to save me if I have a heart attack in a little bit of time, or is going to do my dad's knee replacement in a few months' time, or whatever it may be, or simply invent something that changes people's lives.
I think that's a podcast all by itself, and actually that's quite a sobering thought that there could be someone who's going to save your life.
Yeah,
so you want to be nice to them.
Yeah. You want to make sure their bedside manner isn't influenced by
yeah, absolutely.
Back in the day.
I was just reading some research about some of the most successful senior leaders, CEOs around the globe, and the research was showing that the top performing leaders identify one thing that they're outstanding at, and they just keep pushing into that thing, building it into that thing until they master it, and they attribute that to their success. So I want to sort of start off with a bit of a mean question, mate. What are you really good
at? Yeah, that I think I'm a reasonably good communicator. I also think that empathy forms a role in the way I approach things, not to the point where it's crippling and I'm Santa Claus and saying yes to everything, but having an understanding of the needs of the people that you're dealing with rather than the organization that you are running makes a real difference, because an organization is a group of individuals, and you can only get that moving if each of those individuals feels a part of it and listened to when the time is right. So that the comm side of the genuine human relations that's required from a leadership perspective, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. One of my little mantras in the company is that great communication and great leadership are synonymous terms. Very
Yeah,
hard to be a great leader if you're a poor communicator.
yeah,
And I'm not sure we spend enough time thinking about that. There was an unfortunate incident in Auckland educational history with Elam Christian College in the terrible tragic events. And I remember vividly seeing the Principal Murray Burton stand in front of the media, knowing that he was probably dying inside, but delivered communication and said a very interesting thing, which I've learned from, and that is tell everyone everything you know, and you'll tell them everything you know when it comes to light. You just keep that communication flowing, and I've learned that in a crisis situation, and that was very valuable. So I think you're absolutely right. Communication
Mm.
is really, really important. One of the issues around senior leadership today that I'm observing is a nasty old term about firefighting. Is that so many leaders are just constantly putting out fires.
Yeah,
Um, but there is a point in senior leadership when you've got to give some stuff away, right? You just can no longer attend to everything, even though we like to think we're Superman, Superwoman.
yeah, yeah.
What did you have to give away, do you think, to be a really great principal?
Oh, that face-to-face contact with the kids. Which is heartbreaking, but you can't do that as much. I've got principal colleagues that say, yeah, I'm going to teach a maths class this year and I'm going to get stuck in and I want to keep my hands dirty in terms of teaching and learning practice. The bigger your school gets, the more challenging that is to do. And so for me, the thing I had to give away was that daily, for want of a better phrase, intimate teaching and learning contact with students. You still enjoy that. You still engage with the young people, and it's just in a different way. And so for me, influencing the teaching practice that happens through the andragogy rather than the pedagogy, it still gets it into the classroom. It still reaches into the teaching and learning process. It just gets there a different way, because principalship, and particularly in large and urban like I am, is about leading an organisation more so and increasingly so. It's CEO stuff, as opposed to being a really good teacher. I think it's really essential that you have been a really good pedagogue in order to lead a school organisation. Some people might have differing views about that, but I think you don't have a head of surgery at Middlemore Hospital who's never picked up a scalpel. And so similarly with principalship, I think you need to be a good pedagogue. But yeah, I think that the distance that gets created between you and the young people you're trying to serve is the sacrifice you make from a principalship perspective.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating what you say, because I've wrestled with that whole concept between being the pedagogical expert and being the people leader, and I think that is a challenge. I think that is a real conflict and tension in senior leaders' heads and hearts. I controversially was working with a private school and had three new senior leaders, senior DPs, who were all teaching a class load. So I think combined it was around 25 hours a week. And I made myself unpopular by saying, look, you weren't employed as DPs to teach. You were
Yeah,
employed as DPs to lead.
yeah,
And they said, oh, no, we need to keep our fingers in the classroom. I'm like, no, come on. You've been teaching for over 30 years. You know what the classroom is about.
yeah,
But actually, the point I was making with them is if you spent those 25 hours on leadership of the school, of improvement of strategic planning, of getting involved in the excellence of execution,
yeah,
probably going to deliver a better result than
yeah,
you teaching a chemistry class once or twice a
yeah,
week. Sort of thing.
great, yeah.
Didn't make myself popular with that conversation, but in the end we did get to that consensus, which was nice. So
Well,
I think you probably answered the next question that I was going to ask you. Is like, where do you spend the most amount of time in school at the moment? And the reverse of that is where would you like to be spending the most?
physically or emotionally?
Wow, yeah. Yeah.
Right. So physically, the most amount of my time I spend in this little box that is my office. Right. I've genuinely got an open door policy, so I don't just say that. Like the door is open, and it's right in a main corridor. So if you want to pop in and see the boss, if you like, you can do that. We've got all that hierarchy and infrastructure and line management stuff that all organisations have, but I believe it's important that anybody that wants to pop in and talk to me about something has the ability to do that without having to make an appointment with my EA. And so open door policy. So there's lots of comms that happen through this office, either planned or unplanned. I try and get my my butt out around the grounds as much as I can. So I do, like, every morning when I get here, bag, laptop, go for a wander around the grounds, do a physical property check, see what's happening before the kids get here, and then try and get out for lunchtime, try and be at the gate at the end of the day when kids are going. So, but yeah, physically here, mentally and emotionally, if this week's anything to go by, everything from the Grand Hall and Parliament buildings, where I was physically yesterday, through to just checking that lino doesn't have asbestos under it in one of my classrooms next door, and anything possibly in between. Trying to work out why the girls' toilets that are brand new are blocking, and uncovering the drain and realizing there's a whole lot of vape products underneath it. So literally drainage, through to Parliament buildings, physically and emotionally.
Yeah, interesting making the distinction physically and emotionally. I like that. I just want to pick up one thing you've said, and maybe I'll extrapolate and take a wild guess. In order to have an open door policy, you must have a high level of trust that your staff can wander in and tell you stuff. A bit like Jim Collins saying, my job is to lift the rocks, and see what's underneath them, even though they scare the hell out of me. So you must have a level of trust with your staff if they can wander in through your door and tell you stuff that potentially you might not want to hear.
Yeah, and probably your first year teacher, who's only just got a job and it's term 2 right now, isn't going to pile into Vaughani's office if they're aware of who I am type stuff, without talking myself up too much. They might be a little intimidated in the first instance as a new employee, but yeah, I have got a high level of trust, right? And also, I am a great believer, and it's someone else's quote, not mine. I can't remember who said it, but I don't employ good people to tell them what to do. I employ good people to trust them to do what they need to do and get on with it and keep me in the loop about what's going on. I have no idea how to deliver the calculus achievement standards at level 3 to our year 13 students. But my head of maths and his team have got a great understanding of how to do that. So yeah, I do need to be able to trust them. But then also that relational trust about coming in and saying, actually, I've got an issue with something professional or something personal that needs addressing. So yeah, there's all sorts of trust things all over the place. Sorry about that phone ringing, by the way.
No, that's all right. No, it's communication, right? We just talked
Yeah.
communication. So, yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I did hear someone say recently, I didn't employ my senior staff, for me to tell them what to do.
Yeah, that's right.
For them to tell me what to do. And I think that's pretty important, isn't it? I remember saying at a certain SPANS conference and upset some people by suggesting that leadership was a profession, and that when you stepped into when you step in the senior role, it's about people, right? I mean, yes, you've got to know pedagogy, obviously, but you are trying to massage a huge bunch of people to keep them on track, keep them happy, and keep them delivering outstanding education. We know the facts and figures that the emotional state and probably the physical state of a teacher in the classroom determines the quality of the teaching that they're going to deliver. So we've got to keep people happy. What's the biggest challenge then? I mean, that's probably a very long conversation.
Good God, man! What are you?
Yes, yeah, no, that's right. Sorry,
currently or ever?
It's my reductive approach. What's the one thing?
So probably the things that keep people like me up at night. And by the way, I sleep all right. It's not all doom and gloom. It's quite a cool job. Are things that I can't control. So basically all school principals are alphas, right? They've got to be. And they like to be in full control of everything and have a handle on everything. And when we lose control of stuff or don't know answers, we tend to freak out a little bit. So at the moment, so currently, the things that are freaking us out, that the recruitment of staff, quality teacher supply, particularly homegrown teacher supply, is extraordinarily challenging. The recruitment process is long and drawn out, and historically it would be someone would quit, 8 weeks later their replacement comes in because that person's got to give 2 months notice, and you knew what you were playing with. At the moment, just to get a job check done, you're waiting 6 weeks for bringing someone in from overseas, and so that just adds and adds. So you're going to have recruiting gaps of a term or possibly 2 instead of a month or possibly 2, which we used to live in. So the recruitment space is extraordinarily burdensome.
Well, can I ask you then? I mean, in regard to that, if it's challenging, popping on your hat of president of SPANS,
Yeah.
Do you have an open door policy with the Minister of Education to be able to have these kind of conversations?
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Yes. And
Yeah.
hasn't always been. Yes, Spans as an organisation has had direct links to all of the ministers of the day in the time that I've been on the exec, which is almost a decade type stuff. However, our current minister is incredibly connected and and a lot closer to the front line than previous ministers have been. And that's not a fault of previous ministers. This minister will ring you directly if they want an answer about secondary education, rather than going through ministry. She'll ring. Which other ministers haven't done. They've done a ministerial, and ministry and employees go and find the information and blah, 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 blah. It just takes time to get that information. But it's a different operating model we've got currently. But yes, organisationally, we've always had a link to the minister and meet on a 6-weekly cycle.
Yeah, that's fantastic, mate, because one of the things I've always believed is that the organisational chart is not the communication chart, that senior leaders have to be able to go to the floor at some point and ask questions of people if they're not getting the information, filtered up through the system. So no, good on her for doing that. I think that's really smart, because
Similarly though, to the credit of the Ministry of Education, we've got a very direct line to their senior leadership team on a daily or weekly or whatever need basis there too. So they're
right, okay. Well, that's nice to know that they're recognising who you are. I mean, I used to hold to this view that if you wanted to know what was going on in society, go and talk to the local secondary school principal.
Yes,
Their fingers are on the, absolutely on the pie and on the hot plate. So they knew what was going on. So let's talk about the positives.
Yep.
I just wanted to finish up by asking you a simple question, really. What are you most excited about, at Papatoetoe at the moment, in education, in your community? What really makes you buzz?
Oh, look, seeing kids succeed is always exciting, right? So when I referred yesterday to being in the Grand Hall of Parliament, that was about celebrating those super brainiacs that get the first in sort of things, right? That's all just cool, but not. There's only 37 of those, and there's quite a few thousand kids at school. So just seeing success, seeing that either the aha moment or where I get it, or seeing where a student who in year 9 and 10 might have not been behaving in such a pro-social way that suddenly is turning up in impeccable uniform and getting to 85% of their classes instead of 45% of their classes. All of that stuff continues to motivate and keep you coming back for a little bit more. And young people are just sort of fun. It's just quite entertaining, even when they're getting it wrong. It's not you're laughing at them or anything. It's not that type of entertaining. Just being part of that journey is incredibly rewarding. What I'm most excited about, look, I'm always excited about the potential of the new cohort of kids and the current student leaders. And it's Groundhog Day from that perspective, because I always get a new batch of people that have never been in year 9 before. And I always get a new batch of people that have never been the head boy or the head girl or the prefect team before. And you get to shape and mold and help and support. It's just, that stuff doesn't change. It's great.
No, I think it's fantastic, man. I really do. I appreciate your comments today. I am a great believer in one of the things you've said. I'm a huge believer in rewarding people. And we have a thing called the Get Back Up Scholarship, which is kids have gone through trauma of various types, whether it's losing a parent or being involved, being the victim of crime, or even having been involved in some stuff they shouldn't. But turn their lives around. I think we need to reward that. And I'm a great believer that if a student comes in at the 30th percentile and they go out at the 60th, that's a double increase, right? It's 100% increase.
Celebrate, right?
Right. It is something to celebrate. And I love the fact that we can go to Parliament and recognise these outstanding students, but doubling your outcome.
Yeah.
Year 9 or year 10. That's an outstanding achievement, right? So I think we've got to, so I love your perspective on that. Vaughan Couillault is the senior principal, the senior leader of Papatoetoe High School. He's also the president of SPANS, and his minder in the corner has been observing and taking notes. Kia ora to you. Thank you for being with me, and I appreciate your comments today.
All good. Anytime. Take it easy.
Can you hear me now?